Hi guys, how are you?
Hi,
Hey,
Rachel.
Rachel.
Great. How are you?
Doing well. So to start, you guys got to do your own version of probably one of the most iconic like cartoon openers, I think, of all time. And so for you guys, what was the challenge of knowing that you guys were tackling something that is so ingrained in millennials' minds that we can just sing it on a without thinking too hard on it?
I think the biggest challenge was just to not screw it up, like it's a perfect piece of music. And I think like we were sort of like charged with, reproducing a new version of it. And a lot of that just came down to exploration. So we kind of at the get-go did 7 or 8 versions that were all very different to sort of figure out just sort of feel out the landscape as to like, oh, what's working, what's landing, what works with the show. And I mean, we kind of guessed that a version close to what was the original would be the best idea. But like, you can't, we wanted to try everything. So we really leaned into all the other ideas, but really like, sort of right down the center of the field was the right option of staying like in the lane, not trying to get too fancy with it. It's pretty close to the original. There are a few things that we left out for reasons of sort of like sonic real estate, but for the most part, it's pretty close to the original. And it was fun to do.
And with a show like this, like I'm a nerd, so I have my favorite X-Men, and I feel like everyone kind of has their favorite. But when you guys are looking at them musically, is there a specific score for a character or something that you do for a specific member of the X-Men that like you like more that might not necessarily be your favorite character, but you like doing music for that character?
That's a great question. I think, well, first of all, we're both nerds too, so we fit right on in. And the answer to that question, I think, is that it's constantly shifting of who you're favoring, oddly enough. And I didn't see that coming upon working on the show. I was like, oh, this character is my favorite. And it's just you sort of grow empathy and sort of appreciation for other characters that you didn't have. And like Rogue is an amazing, like when she gets going, she's this incredible force to be reckoned with. And there's all these incredible different changes that happen to the characters as the stories progress. So I think your what you like changes as well. But for from a musical standpoint, I think for me, Magneto is one of my favorites because of just where he comes from, his past, his power, and his ability. Even though he becomes unhinged, it feels like at times he still controls his power very, very well. And I also think Storm, I our assistant came, she came in one time and she's like, this is ridiculous. She's just like, Storm would just destroy everybody. She's just more powerful than everyone. And she just went on this whole thing on why Storm was, would you just kill everyone with her powers. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And then, and then the end of episode 1, she comes in and she just saves the day all by herself for that section. And it's just like, it's huge and it's powerful. So like, I get it. And I think it's really cool to see everybody sort of like chiming up with like, this person's this is the X-Men. This is, I mean, which is funny because they're a team. But I don't know if that answers the question.
That does. And listen, Storm's an Omega level threat. I understand exactly where she's coming from. But I'm asking this question just because I know you guys did the score for it. I can see it in the background, and it is one of my favorite movies. So Doctor Sleep obviously has a very different kind of tone than even like Five Nights at Freddy's, and then even different than X-Men 97. And you kind of have to approach those all differently, I assume, when you are doing a show that, most of us relate back to like Saturday morning cartoons and first waking up. Does that change how you guys approach the music at all, or are you still just honoring whatever's happening in those scenes?
You know, we're honoring what's happening in the scenes and also trying to sort of, with the information we have about where the season goes, we're sort of trying to carry fans through the show and the story. Um, and a big thing is not to, I mean, this is a big thing with Flanagan and Trevor, when we work with them, it's very important to not point a finger, like not to tell people how to feel. Let them feel based on what is happening with the story. And I think that that's a lot of what we tried to carry into this, even though everything is jam-packed. It's still the story is being told, and we don't need to point a finger. We just need to sort of lay back and bolster and highlight things as is necessary. Um, but to kind of honor the sound and the story by not being too like big and bold. I mean, there's moments when the score gets real big and bold, but you've already come to that place through the character, if that makes sense. Like there's a scene in later episodes where like you're taken to this place um through story, and you're already there, like when the score takes you to a place. And I don't mean to be like abstract since we can't really talk about that, but the idea is that like you come, like you as a fan come to the feelings that you're having, whether you're crying or happy or exuberant, you're already there. And then the score is just like, yeah, yeah, it's okay, here's some Kleenex, or like, yeah, 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 here's like a Red Bull, like keep having fun, or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we'd approach it.
Yeah, that whole thing kept reminding me of the Nicole Kidman ad because every time you would say something, I'd be like, "We come to this place for magic." But I in those three properties, you are also kind of dealing with nostalgia. Literally all three of them, as I said them, I was like, they all have like nostalgia attached to them. Do you guys like having that on the back burner, knowing that like, yeah, I have this nostalgia I can pull from? Or do you like kind of having a blank slate of no one knows what I'm gonna do with this and I just can dive in?
Great question. I think both for different reasons. I think nostalgia because I mean, look, I wasn't alive when or born yet when the original Shining came out. But when I did see it, it impacted me a ton. And so when we got to work on Doctor Sleep, obviously that nostalgia was there, even though it's from a different time and stuff. And when something is completely has nothing really laid out like Five Nights at Freddy or something like that, I think it's also exciting because it's sort of like, well, how does that make you feel or the viewer feel? Does it make you feel nostalgic anyways? Because it can, even though it's not referencing something that actually happened. It's just how you're feeling. You know what I mean? Because Five Nights at Freddy gives a certain late 80s, 90s feeling in certain parts of the film. And I think the fans really sort of pull it from that. And I think when we watched it, we were like, also like, yeah, I remember even asking the director, I was like, what year is it? You know what I mean? Specifically, like, because there were some set scenes where I was like, this feels so old school to me. And that's intentional. They want you to feel that sort of that like magic with the era and the old school lights and like that arcade, and like it gives a sense of something. So I think it's really nice to have the changes, and it's just a different approach, different things. But it's always fun for us to have those challenges.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for talking with me, and thank you for being a part of bringing the X-Men back. I have never felt so happy on random Wednesday afternoons watching a television show. But thank you guys so much for talking with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you.
You have a great one.